but the Thompsons didn't seem to notice. "What do you want for breakfast?" Mom shouted. "What?" Dad shouted louder. "What do you want for breakfast?" Mom yelled. "Toaster waffles," Dad yelled louder. "I can't hear the TV," Ty hollered, turning up the volume. "Do you want juice?" Mom screamed. "I can't hear you," Dad responded, and so it went. With each new question, the sound on the TV would be turned up higher and higher until it was positively deafening. Then Mom switched on her radio. The Thomases were a perfectly nice family, but I could tell it was going to be a very long and noisy weekend unless I came up with a plan. So I spun on my wheel for a while to help me think. I thought, and I thought, and I thought some more, and then it came, the big idea. I probably would have come up with it sooner if I could have heard myself think. Around noon, the Thomases were all watching a football game on TV. Or rather, Mr. Thomas was watching the football game on TV while AJ and Ty shouted questions at him. Mrs. Thomas was in the kitchen listening to the radio and talking on the phone. Dealey played peekaboo with the baby in the cozy chair. No one was watching me, so I carefully opened the lock that does not lock on my cage and made a quick exit. Naturally, no one could hear me skitter across the floor as I made my way around the outside of the room, over to the space behind the TV cabinet. Then, with great effort, I managed to pull out the plug, one of the most difficult feats in my life. The TV went silent, beautifully, blissfully, silently silent. So silent I was afraid to move. I waited behind the cabinet, frozen. The Thomases stared at the TV screen as the picture slowly went dark. "Ty, did you hit the remote?" Mr. Thomas asked. "Nah, it's under the table." "Anthony, go turn that thing on." Again, Mr. Thomas said. AJ jumped up and hit the power button on the TV. Nothing happened. "It's broken," he exclaimed. Mrs. Thomas rushed in from the kitchen. "What happened?" Mr. Thomas explained that the TV had gone off and they discussed how old it was, 5 years. Whether it had a guarantee, no one knew, and if Mr. Thomas could fix it, he couldn't. Everything was fine and it went off just like that. "I guess we'd better take it to get fixed," Mr. Thomas said. "How long will that take?" Dealey asked in a whiny voice. "I don't know," her dad replied. "How much will it cost?" Mrs. Thomas asked. "Oh yeah," her husband said. "I forgot, we're a little low on funds right now." The baby began to cry. I thought the rest of the family might start crying too. "Well, I get paid next Friday," Dad said. AJ jumped up and raised his hands. "That's a whole week away." "I'm going to Grandma's house. Her TV works," said Ty. "Me too," Dealey chimed in. "Grandma's got her bridge club over there tonight," Mom said. "I know," said Dad. "Let's do a movie." "Do you know how much it costs to go to a movie?" Mom asked. "Besides, we can't take the baby." Oh. They whined and bickered for quite a while. They got so loud I managed to scamper back into my cage unnoticed. Then, I guess I dozed off. Remember, I had hardly a wink of sleep since I arrived. The bickering was nice, soothing background after all that racket. I was only half asleep when the squabbling changed. "But there's nothing to do," Dealey whined. Her father chuckled. "Nothing to do? Girl, my brothers and I used to spend weekends at Grandma's house, and she never had a TV. Wouldn't allow it." "What did you do?" AJ asked. "Oh, we were busy every minute," he recalled. "We played cards and board games and word games, and we dug in her garden and played tag." He chuckled again. "A lot of times we just sat on the porch and talked. My grandma, she could talk." "What'd you talk about?" Ty wondered. "Oh, she'd tell us stories about her growing up, about ghosts and funny things, like the time her uncle was walking in his sleep and went to church in his pajamas." Mrs. Thomas gasped. "Oh, go on now, Charlie." I'm just telling you what she told us. He woke up in the middle of the service, looked down, and there he was in his blue and white striped pajamas. I let out a squeak of surprise, and the kids all giggled. Then Mrs. Thomas told a story about a girl in her class who came to school in her slippers by accident one day. Yes, the fuzzy kind, she explained with a big smile. They talked, and Dad got out some cards, and they played a game called Crazy Eights, and another one called Pig, where they put their fingers on their noses and laughed like hyenas. When Bo fussed, they took turns jiggling him on their knees. After a while, Mrs. Thomas gasped, "Goodness sakes, it's an hour past your bedtimes." All the children groaned and asked if they could play cards tomorrow. And in a few minutes, all the Thomases had gone to bed, and it was quiet, quiet, quiet for the first time since I arrived. Tip 11. Be careful. If set free, Hansperts are experts at disappearing in a room.